Thank you. Thank you. Before I formally start the meeting, I confirm that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and the Licensing Act Hearing Regulations 2005, which allow councils to make their own arrangements for licensing subcommittees to hear matters in connection with the premises licenses. Please note that agenda item 5, application for grant of premises license in respect of weavers, has been withdrawn following an agreement between the applicant and the public objector. I will begin by introducing the committee members and officers who will be present throughout the meeting. I'm the chair, Councillor Polly Andrews. To my left is Councillor Claire Davis. To my right, Councillor Dave Davis, no relation. Legal advisor to the committee is Mr. Brown, sitting there. Clerk to the subcommittee is Jen Priest, who is over there, and technical support, Joel Higgins. Other attendees will be introduced at relevant stages in the meeting. Please note the following points with regard to the conduct of this meeting. The Council is video and audio streaming this meeting live on the internet and making a recording. This recording forms part of the public record of the meeting and will be available on the Council's website. Please remember what you say and do in the meeting has a global reach, and your words and actions should be chosen carefully. The chat facility has been switched off to ensure that attendees' contributions can be offered through the spoken word and for the public record. Please ensure that all your mobile devices are switched to silent. If any remote attendee loses connection, the meeting will be paused to ascertain if the connection can be restored quickly. If it is not possible to recover the connection within a reasonable amount of time, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum of subcommittee members remains able to hear the proceedings and be heard. If you plan to leave before the end of the meeting, please can you indicate this in advance. Are there any questions about the proceedings before we continue? No? Thank you. Thank you. I will now proceed with the formal agenda of the meeting. Apologies for absence. I don't think we have any apologies for absence. No. Are there any name substitutes? No. You're all here. Councillor... It's all right, you're coming in a minute. Councillor Simmons, who is also present, will act as a substitute for me on agenda item 6, application for the premises licence for Sky Blue Liquor. Are there any interest to be declared for the items today? Otherwise, well, I have an interest to declare. As another registrable interest in item number 6, application for premises licence for Sky Blue Liquor. I am a member of Hereford City Council and chair of the City Council's Planning Committee that considered the Sky Blue Liquor application and provided a representation. Therefore, I shall be taking no part in this application. We now move to the first substantive item on the agenda. Could I ask a technical support officer to remove remote attendees to the Sky Blue Liquor application into the waiting room if they're not there already? They are there. Thank you. We have an application for variation of a premises licence in respect of NICER 38 High Street, Kington, HR53BJ, Licensing Act 2003. The purpose of this is an application for variation of a premises licence in respect of NICER 38 High Street, Kington, under the Licensing Act 2003. In attendance for this application, we have in the room, on behalf of the Licensing Authority, Emma Bowell, seated over there, and the remote attendees. I will go to the remote attendees to confirm that you're able to hear and see me, and I will confirm in response that I can hear you. Where practicable, please would you have your video switched on so you can be seen by members of in attendance and any of the public. We have public representations, Captain Martin Wolford on behalf of Kington Town Council.
Yes, I can hear you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Ali Allen, are you there? No? No?
Oh, yes. Can you
Yes.
hear me now?
Yes, thank you. And
Yeah.
Miss Liz Edstone. Can you, Miss Edstone, are you here? You're on the line. Are you muted? Can you hear me? No?
No, I can hear you, but
You can hear
That's
me,
right.
can you?
I can hear you.
Thank
I can hear you.
And we can hear you.
Oh, good.
Right. And for the applicant, Mr. Kalyana, the development manager for Sammy Limited. Are you
Yes,
here?
yeah, I can.
Thank you.
Yes.
James Wallace, trainee solicitor. Yes.
Hello, yes, I can hear you clearly.
And Robert Botkai, partner, Winkworth Sherwood. Are you here?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Right. Well, start with the order of speakers. Emma Bowell on behalf of the Licensing Authority. Emma?
Thank you, Chair. So as the Chair rightly said, we're here to consider an application for a variation of a premise licence in respect of NISA 38 High Street in Kincton. Recommendations are the subcommittee determine the application with a view to promote these licensing objectives in the overall interests of the local community. They should give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote those licensing objectives, the representations including any supporting information presented by all parties, the guidance issued to local authorities under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and the Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy of 2020 to 2025. And the reasons for those recommendations are it ensures compliance with the Licensing Act 2003. There are a number of options open to the subcommittee today. One would be grant the licence subject to conditions that are consistent with the operating schedule. B, grant the licence subject to modified conditions to that of the operating schedule. Exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. To refuse to specify the person in the licence as the premises supervisor or to refuse the application. The application for variation has received relevant representation and is therefore brought before the subcommittee today for determination. Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2020 to 2025 states all representations must be relevant. For example, they must be about the likely effect of the grant of the application. This followed paragraph 8.57 in the section 182 guidance, which uses the same wording. The applicant is Sammy Limited. The agent is Winkworth Sherwood LLP. We received the application on the 20th of September 2003. 28-day consultation started on the 21st of September 23 and the consultation ended 28 days later on the 18th of October 2023. The application can be found at Appendix 1 and requests the following: to extend the hours for the sale of alcohol to 24 hours daily, to allow for the provision of late night refreshment between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. daily, to remove the conditions listed in Annex 3, to include in Annex 2 the conditions in Section 16 of the application at Appendix 2, to remove the restriction to licensable activities on Christmas Day and Good Friday. The current licences can be found at Appendix 3 and authorise the sale and supply of alcohol for consumption off the premises on weekdays other than Christmas Day, 8 a.m. until 11 p.m, on Sundays other than Christmas Day, 10 a.m. until 10:30 p.m, on Christmas Day, 12 noon to 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. till 10:30 p.m, and on Good Friday, 8 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. No objections or representations were received from any of the responsible authorities. 4 relevant representations were received from members of the public that the Licensing Authority has accepted as being relevant, and these can be found at Appendix 4. A named and signed petition opposing the variation application, signed by 77 residents of Kincton, was also received by the Licensing Authority. The premises was first licensed in 2005. The licence was brought before subcommittee on the 31st of May, on the 9th of May 2008, and the licence was suspended in respect of all licensable activity for a period of 7 days. Since being first licensed, the Licensing Authority has received 5 applications to vary the designated premises supervisor, which have all been granted, with the latest one being granted on the 19th of September 23, along with 2 applications to transfer the premise licence, which also have been granted, again the latest one being the 19th of September 2023. Any decision may have an impact on the local community. There are environmental impacts, quality duties and legal implications set out in this report that your legal advisor can help you on further if you need it. There are no financial implications to the council at this time as a licensing authority. The right of appeal is at Schedule 5, Part 1, and it states that the paragraph applies when an application to vary a premise licence is, in whole or in part, under Section 35, and the applicant or any party has a 21-day appeal procedure at the Magistrates' Court. These should be made to the Magistrates' Court and must be made within the 21 days beginning with the day on which the appellant was notified by the licensing authority of the decision appealed against. There is little risk associated with the decision at this time, as the legislation allows the right of appeal to Magistrates' Court. All responsible authorities and members of the public living within Herefordshire have been consulted. Appendices 1 to 4 were found at the back of this report. Thank you, Chair.
We will now go to the public representations. We will start with Councillor Martin Wolford, who represents Kington Town Council.
Thank you, Chair. The council objects quite strongly to this application on a number of cases, and I'd like to reiterate those points that we made on our reply. Kington County Council's objection is primarily into the removal of restrictions to the current licence, enabling sales of alcohol on a 24-hour basis. Given that there are few premises within Herefordshire that allow 24-hour alcohol sales, we believe there are currently just 12. We believe this will encourage people to drive to the town to access this store, encouraging the potential for those driving under the influence of alcohol. Public opinion on this particular issue is strong, with the Town Council receiving in excess of 85 individual objections to this proposal. Like many small towns, alcohol abuse is evident within the town, and we believe allowing the purchase of alcohol on a 24-hour basis, particularly at night, will exacerbate existing issues of local crime and disorder as a result of alcohol abuse. In addition to this, we believe the public nuisance aspect will be quite considerable. The store in question is located in our narrow high street, which has residential dwellings above the majority of independent stores, which form Kington's unique high street. Noise from people accessing any late night, overnight sales of alcohol and or refreshments, if this application was approved, would severely disrupt the residents living in the immediate vicinity, whether that access is on foot or by vehicle. Kington already has a history of vehicles parking illegally on the narrow high street, causing a hazard and resulting in difficulty for emergency vehicles and others to pass at any time of the day or night. Whilst car parking is available at the rear of the store via a public car park, it is unlikely vehicles will use that car park at night and then walk around to the front of the store to make a purchase, particularly as overnight availability in this car park is very limited. Thank you, Chair.
I would point out, Councillor Wolford, parking is not part of, or traffic is not part of our remit.
Right.
We deal only with licensing. Highways is not part of our remit
No,
at all.
That's fully understood.
Or is it me? Is it gone silent?
Gone silent.
Miss Enstone.
Everything's gone silent.
Right.
No.
We can hear you in the room, Miss Enstone. If you can talk, please.
Okay, yes, I'm here. It's just that everything has gone silent from your end. I can hear you, but
Okay.
I can't
Well,
hear anything else.
we're in the room now, so you should be able to
Okay.
hear proceedings in the room now.
Thank you.
Please go ahead. Can you hear us, Miss Enstone?
I can hear you talking now, but I can't hear.
Well, please
don't
go
know
ahead. Please say what you'd like to say.
No, I don't know. Are you asking me to speak now? I'm a bit confused as to what's happening, to be honest.
Well, we understand that you are objecting to this application.
Yes.
Would
Yes.
you like to
Okay.
tell us what your
Yes.
objections are?
Okay. Yes. Well, I did submit a letter, and most of the things that I object to are what have just been brought up by Kington Council. I think it's going to be potentially very, very disadvantageous to especially our young people here. I said in my letter that I had my granddaughter staying here not long ago for a few months, getting over some mental health issues, and she was constantly searching out drugs and alcohol. And she's not alone in this. There's a lot of this going on, and I'd be very concerned that alcohol being so readily available all through the night would be very, very bad for our young people. And not only that, it's the general disruption at night in this very quiet town. I can't see any justification for this application whatsoever. And that's really all I have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ali Allen? Ali Allen?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go
Hey.
ahead.
Yeah, I hadn't actually planned on speaking at the meeting, but as you're asking, so I also sent in a letter of opposition, which is there, and I also got the petition together, which I gathered pretty quickly over a period of a few days here in Kingston. But I do have a bit of a unique perspective because I live on the high street. I live above one of the shops and also have a business during the day on the high street as well, a retail business. So I live this high street 24 hours a day and kind of understand the goings on. And to be honest, it's just unnecessary. Why? What are the benefits? I would ask the committee, what are the benefits of selling alcohol for 24 hours, 7 days a week? The objections are just far stronger, really. The possibilities of what what may happen are much greater in my mind. I mean, I constantly have issues once the pubs are closed. There's just a lot of noise outside, directly outside the bed and breakfast. This is this town is growing. The council, Herefordshire Council, put a lot of money recently into promoting tourism in this area, and it's a really up and coming tourist town. And I have a bed and breakfast above with walkers that stay here, and it's incredibly disruptive to have drunk people outside my premises late at night. It's just going to encourage that behaviour in my mind, and we don't need traffic coming in late at night either to pick up alcohol during the night. This is a very narrow high street, and the sound is really exacerbated because of the narrowness of the high street. And sorry, I'm not being very articulate here, but I feel quite strongly that there's absolutely no reason to have 24-hour access at all. So I support all that the Kingston Town Council has said and Liz Enstone just now. And I don't see, I would like to know what the reason is other than the shop getting some benefits. I'm all for retail and for business because I have one as well, but I think this is unnecessary and potentially damaging to the town. And that's That's it, really.
Thank you very much.
So,
All right. We will now go to the app for the applicant. Mr. Bokal, the partner, Miss, please first.
Hello again, it's Robert Bockhi, and I represent the applicants. And I'm pleased to say that the cat has been removed from my room and hopefully will not make another appearance. But it's his second hearing of the day, so he got a little bit restless. Okay, so this is an application to vary an existing license. A little bit about the applicant. Sami Limited owns some 50. Can you hear me first of all?
We can hear you quite clearly.
Excellent, good. So Sami Limited owns some 50 stores. They employ 300 or so people. They try to employ people local to their stores. This store they acquired in September 2023 from a company called Ascona, who traded as a NISA. It will now trade as a Morrison's. I just wanted to clarify that this application has got nothing to do with Morrison. So I keep getting Nick Semper coming up as waiting on the lobby. So I keep on having to click them out. There we go. So Sami Limited operate with different symbol groups. So they may have a Londis, they may have a Morrison's. It could be a Spar. But this store will be a Morrison's, certainly for the foreseeable future, which means that Morrison's supply the goods and it's branded as a Morrison's, but it is owned and operated by the Sami group, who, as I say, have over 50 stores now around the country. And many, if not most of their stores are now 24-hour licensed stores. So they're licensed to sell alcohol 24 hours and late night refreshment. I've personally attended many hearings for Sami Limited. It tends to be where residents have opposed an application. It's unusual now for us to have officers opposing, but it can happen from time to time. But most of the hearings are where residents are concerned about the prospect of 24-hour alcohol, and as is the case here, they predict that certain things will happen if we are allowed to provide late night refreshment or sell alcohol during the night. Now, licensing, as your papers actually explain quite well, and your policy explains quite well, licensing is actually a presumptuous piece of legislation which generally allows licenses to be granted unless there are good reasons to restrict the application. And the restriction must be based on real evidence, so good reasons to restrict. And the reason for that is that there is, and I mentioned it again at the end, there is what I call a very hefty sting in the tail in licensing, and that's the license review. So where the premises actually cause crime and disorder or public nuisance or hinder public safety or somehow put children at risk or harm, and then there is a procedure to follow which anybody has a right to instigate, and that is the license review. And I'm pleased to say that none of the Sami Limited licenses have been reviewed, and that's notwithstanding me saying pretty much the same thing that I'm explaining now at all of these hearings where residents have attended. We've made it quite clear that we don't believe that their fears will materialise, but if they do so, please contact us. If we don't deal with those concerns, then we know perfectly well that we'll be back before the committee for a review, and that hasn't happened in any of the Sami store licenses. So I hope that gives a little bit of reassurance. I just wanted to touch on the review that's mentioned in the papers in May 2008. That's obviously a different ownership. It's nothing to do with Sami Limited. I understand there are a couple of underage sales. The license has been transferred a couple of times. There have been new DPSs put in place. So absolutely nothing to do with this applicant whatsoever. So I'd suggest that it's actually not relevant to today's proceedings. The license itself, a little bit of, again, history, if you like, it seems to me that this is what we call a 1964 Act license. So under the 1964 Licensing Act, an off license could only be granted for 8 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, Monday to Saturday, and then 10 to 10:30 on Sundays, and different hours on Christmas Day and Good Friday. You couldn't apply for anything else for an off license. The 2003 Act, which came in I still call it the new Act, sadly, but the 2003 Act, which came into force in 2005, allows for 24-hour licensing. And so a lot of licenses were grandfathered over in 2005, which is why we still have these sort of 64 Act hours on some premises. But most new applications would not be for those hours. They would be maybe 8 to 11 or 6 to 12 or 24 hours, depending on what the opening hours of the premises are. So we've acquired what is effectively a 1964 Act license, subject to conditions put on review, and I'll touch on that in a moment. And so in applying to vary the license to change the hours, we are updating the conditions. There's nothing sinister or clever about that. It's that we've looked at the old license, and it is an old license, and we've brought it up to date with the conditions which you've got in your in your papers. This is we're not in a community of impact area, and I'll just explain that briefly, really for the benefit of residents. If we were in a community of impact area, we would have to demonstrate exceptional reasons why this license should be granted. We're not in a community of impact area, so it's actually for objectors or interested parties to demonstrate by way of evidence why the application should not be granted or why more restrictive measures should be applied. So that's the test that you have before you today, and as your papers point out, case law suggests that real evidence would need to be produced for you to introduce those restrictions. A little bit about late night refresh. Sorry, I should have said that we are actually open 24 hours a day, and we have done since September without any issue. And nobody here today has said that we have caused any sort of noise disturbance or parking or driving issues as a result of us being open 24 hours a day. So we're already trading 24 hours a day, but we're not selling alcohol at the moment after 11 o'clock at night. And we can't sell coffee after 11 o'clock at night. So the application is in two parts, effectively. The first is, well, three parts. The first part is late night refreshment. Late night refreshment is the provision of hot drink or hot food between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. We need to be licensed for that. That's the law. It generally doesn't cause a disturbance. We can sell sandwiches, we can sell soft drinks, we can sell everything in our store, but we can't at the moment allow somebody who may want a cup of coffee. They can buy a cup of coffee at 5 to 11, but they can't buy a cup of coffee at 2 minutes past 11. So that's all the late night refreshment application. It's just to allow our Costa machine to continue to be used to match our trading hours. Hot food would be very, very limited, if anything. Sami don't generally have very much hot food in the premises, if at all. The late night refreshment is mostly about the provision of hot drinks, and I would hope that is not controversial. The second part of the application is the alcohol times, and I know that this does provoke concern, understandable concern from residents, and in the case of Ali, if I can call her Ali, the local business. And we do hear these concerns, and we are not belittling them, and we've heard them or similar concerns many times before, and actually those concerns have not materialized, and I substantiate that by saying that there's not been a review of any of the other stores, and they are frequently in residential areas. Most convenience stores are in residential areas, so there's nothing unique about this particular location. So I was going to the third part of the application is about the conditions, and looking at the conditions, I think they were imposed on the license when the previous owners in 2008 transgressed and they made sales to the underage sales, and so conditions were put on, including that all sales be supervised by a personal license holder, and other conditions there, which we are seeking to remove, and we've replaced them with a more detailed set of up-to-date conditions. And if any of those conditions or the removal of the conditions worries the committee at all, I'm very happy to readdress you as to the reasons for that. But I say nothing sinister there at all. We've put in more detailed conditions on CCTV. We operate challenge 25, so any person that appears to be under the age of 25 would be challenged for ID. We have signage conditions, we have training. So all of our staff are trained through a company called CPL, online and written paper training. They have that training refreshed at least every 6 months. So they're all trained both on underage sales, but also how to deal with troublesome customers, if you like. That's all part of their training. And they also have till prompts, so that warn them when they scan through an age-restricted product. It warns the cashier that they must seek the appropriate age verification. So we've got 4 representations. I'm pleased to say that there are no representations from your responsible authorities, and you as a committee will be aware that the government guidance is quite clear that the police are your experts on crime and disorder, and if the police felt that the grant of this variation was in any way likely to increase crime and disorder, they would have brought that to your attention. And likewise, you have noise officers, you have environmental health, you have the officer responsible for protection of children from harm. All of those officers have been consulted about this application, and they are your experts, and none of them have raised any concerns whatsoever. We do have the representations from the town council and 3 others, and I'm going to address you on those briefly. I haven't seen in the pack a petition, so I'm assuming, unless I'm told otherwise, that that's not been accepted as relevant by your legal advisor or licensing officer. But so please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I'm not going to dwell on any petition or the council statement that they've got X number of people who've written to them.
Allow me to interrupt you briefly. We didn't include it in the papers because there was a lot of it.
Sorry, Chair, can I just interrupt?
That would be a very unusual reason not to include a document in
Sorry,
in a committee report.
Yeah, the licensing authority did accept the petition. However, we didn't publish it because the petition contained signatures, names and addresses of everyone who objected. So obviously, due to GDPR, we couldn't publish that.
Thank you, Emma, for that. Please continue.
Well, it would be a very odd committee report which doesn't include a relevant document. So how am I supposed to deal with the papers which are not included?
Did you not catch Miss Bowles' comment? We couldn't. Would you like to repeat it again, please, Emma?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was accepted by the licensing authority, but as the petition contained names and addresses and signatures of each representative, we couldn't publish it due to GDPR, and also they didn't consent to have their details shared.
Thank you. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I did. I must admit, it's the first time that I've ever attended a hearing where a document is being referred to but is not being included in the report, even in a redacted capacity. I'm not quite sure what the court
if we'd
would say about that. It's a bit difficult, Emma.
Sorry, no, if we've redacted everything, you'd have just had a black piece of paper for the 77 people that objected. Okay,
well, in which case, if I'm not able to look at the names and addresses of the people who, or their signatures, or the dates on which they've signed it, or what's being said to them, or who's organised it, then I would ask you to attach very, very little weight to the petition, which to us at this hearing is invisible. And I'm happy to leave it with the committee, and no doubt taking advice on the weight, the appropriate weight to be attached to the petition, which I don't have in the report.
Can I just say, can you hear me? This is Ali.
Well, I'm in the middle of my.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's up to the chair.
Mr. Brown, would you like to comment?
Certainly. Please, first of all, forgive my voice. I'm just recovering from a slight bout of laryngitis. In respect of a collective objection, from 77 parties, which has not been presented to the other side. I would agree that it has an element of unfairness in that you can't make representations on something you've not seen yourself. So my view would be, if it is agreeable, is that it is classed as one representation with 76 supporters in that respect. Or alternatively, it's not counted at all because those who wish to make representations towards it haven't had opportunity to do that.
I don't think we have the names and addresses to hand, do we, of the 77 people? Or even one of them.
Can I just help, Councillor? And can you hear me? I'm just trying to assist. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm not trying to be difficult. There is a very clear process in the Licensing Act as to how an individual makes a representation, and it's very clear on the notice. It's very clear, I'm sure, on the council website. If you want to make an objection to a license application, this is what you do. And there's a reason for that, so that we, as an applicant, would understand the concerns and maybe be able to address those concerns. I'm afraid a petition doesn't really fit the bill in terms of a legal representation, and without sight of it, I'm happy to park it and let you as a committee decide on advice how much weight you attach to it. My own view is that it should be disregarded because it's not in the, it's just invisible. But I'm happy to leave you in the capable hands of Mr. Brown as to what.
Sorry, Mr.
what
Brown,
you do.
could you speak up, please?
Certainly, I'm totally with you in respect of making commentary on documents of which you haven't had sight on. And I would, it is an option to disregard it and or apply little weight to it.
I think we take the advice of our solicitor and we apply little weight to this object, to this petition, as you have not had an opportunity to see it.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, the town council are concerned about the parking, the car park at the back, and Chair, you've already mentioned that licensing is not about that parking and driving is not relevant to the license application. But the town council also mentioned that we're going to be an incentive to drink drive, and that people are going to come into the town late at night because we are selling alcohol. And again, that's not the experience that we've had elsewhere. We are not expecting to become a destination venue. We would be very surprised if you see an increase in traffic, or that you see a particularly busy increase in business at the store simply because they are able to sell everything that's in the store rather than just 80% of what's in the store. Because as I said, we are already open. We are staffed and open, and people can come in during the night. So the only change is that we will be allowing the provision of hot drinks and that the alcohol shelves will remain open. But we don't expect this to be overly busy. Why do we want it? Well, that's because we are staffing it, we are open, and the Licensing Act does allow us to provide licensable activities 24 hours a day, provided that we have the license. So the only thing we can't sell at the moment is hot coffee, hot chocolate, and alcohol. So we are lit, we are open, we are trading, and apparently without any disturbance to our neighbours or the community. A number of the points that have been made by the town council, which we understand, but they're not actually relevant to the licence application as such. In history of vehicles parking illegally, we are not going to be having lots of cars turning up all of a sudden because we've got alcohol. So I think that's most unlikely to present itself as a problem. Liz Enstone has asked what profile of customer requires to purchase alcohol at 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. We don't expect to be selling a lot of alcohol. There will be some. and there are people who work different shifts and different types of customers who use our 24-hour facilities, and it'd be wrong to make an assumption that all of those customers are doing so for the wrong reasons. We don't sell to anybody who's drunk. We do our, if we are told of alcohol dependence or people to look out for, then that is something that we work with the authorities on, and do our very best to make sure that they are not supplied with alcohol at all, whether that's during the night or otherwise. So we don't agree that there are lots and lots of 24-hour licenses, and there's no evidence to suggest that 24-hour licenses in any way encourage alcohol abuse. Most of the other concerns raised by Liz Enstone were about parking and driving and vehicles. And then Ali Alam, and I believe has a store on the high street. I hope I've got that right. And talks about successful bed and breakfasts and the walking community that makes the town so special. And we don't see that the grant of this license will have any impact whatsoever on the specialness of the town. We don't expect groups of drinkers to be hanging around simply because we are not just open, but we have our alcohol sales open as well. And the police have not brought that to your attention as a concern today, and as they are your experts. Ali is also concerned about cars speeding down the high street. That's not going to be as a consequence of us having some shelves of alcohol open. So it won't ruin Ali's business, as she's suggesting, and it won't in any way damage the reputation of the town as a walking town. A little bit concerned about the suggestion that you need to prevent chain stores such as Morrison's from changing the character of the street. Morrison's, I'm not here to speak for Morrison's because it's not their application. They are simply a symbol group, as I explained at the outset. It's not their store. Lots of independent operators such as ours work with the likes of Morrison's, Spar, Londis, and still provide a really good local convenience store to their area. And the suggestion that Morrison's may have, this is in the representation, Morrison's may have targeted Kington because of its inverted commas low socioeconomic status is simply not correct. Morrison's had nothing to do with this application, and I can assure you that SAMI Limited have not identified Kington for that reasons. They wish to be part of the trading community within Kington and provide a really good service to the local community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bodkin. Have you? I think you've given a full account of the details there. Thank you. Could we have Mr. Kalina now to speak?
Well, I'm speaking for Mr.
You're
Kalina,
speaking as well, are you?
Yes.
Right.
If I could just finish, I only had a couple more things. I wasn't aware that I was given a time limit.
Well, you have given us quite a lot of information, I think. Thank you. But if you just want a couple more minutes, then.
I was going to say thank you. So I did ask. So Ashok, who's here, is very familiar with the location. I did ask him how it is at night at the moment. He said it's very quiet at night, and just to reassure that the incoming deliveries won't change at all. So we won't suddenly have lorries coming delivering just because we're open during the night at all. So yes, that's how I was going to finish off. But thank you. I hope I have the opportunity to close at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kaliana. So it's now Mr. Wallace. Have you anything else? Any other new information to add?
Mr. Wallace is a trainee solicitor with me. He's observing just in case I get knocked off the chair by my cat. He's not actually participating in the hearing.
Right. Thank you very much.
Can I say something? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I just want to say, that's all, Robert, that's all very...
I'm sorry, nothing further. You had your opportunity to speak. Thank you.
It would be useful to have him first.
Thank you. Committee, have you any questions you would like to ask?
No, I have nothing.
Councillor Davis?
No, thank you. I've heard quite an in-depth account. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I think we will now. Oh, gosh, this
What's
wretched
that?
thing. Sorry about this. These are new microphones and we're still getting used to them, at least I am. We will now suspend the meeting while we discuss the application. And if you'd like to come back in about 20 minutes.
To readdress you, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Right, thank you. The subcommittee has considered this application and the decision is to grant the application as applied for. The subcommittee has considered the verbal representations heard today and the written representations from members of the public and fully recognised the concerns raised and the reasons why the representations were made. However, the subcommittee considers the application made with the additional conditions will promote the licensing objectives. And we would like to clarify for members of the public that you can go to the licensing department with any evidence-based concerns that you have over this. Over this. I thank you all for attending and all your comments, and I close this part of the meeting at 3:05.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Yeah, right. Right, I will now announce agenda item 5 has been withdrawn, and I will withdraw for item 6, and Councillor Steph Simmons will take the chair.
Well, we'll just have an election of chairperson. As the standing chairperson, Councillor Polly Andrews, is leaving the meeting, what we need to do for the next item is to elect a chair to preside over the subcommittee. So can I call for nominations to the chair, please?
I'd like to nominate Steph Stevens as the chair. Simmons. Stevens. I was clear.
And I second it.
Sorry.
Okay, and is that agreed then, please? All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, that's agreed.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully people can hear on the live stream. My name is Councillor Steph Simmons. I am now the chairperson, having stood in for Councillor Polly Andrews due to a registered interest she has. To my left is Claire Davis, and to my right is Councillor Dave Davis. Also in the room, we have the legal advisor to the subcommittee, Mr. Robert Brown. We have the clerk to the subcommittee, Jen Priest, and the technical support from Joelle Higgins. As previously discussed, we are now moving to agenda item 6. This is the application for a grant of premises licence in respect of Sky Blue Liquor, 60 Commercial Road, Hereford, HR1 2BP, under the Licensing Act 2003. In attendance for this application, we have in the room, on behalf of the Licensing Authority, Emma Bowell. We have remote attendees, and if I can confirm that you're able to hear me in response, do we have Mr. Nick Semper?
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Glad we can hear you. And I understand we have Mr. Razul, the applicant. Is he speaking today?
Yes, I'm here, yeah. Can
Great.
you hear me?
Yes, we can just about hear you. It's very quiet. If you can increase the sound at all, that would be very much appreciated.
It'll be mainly me speaking, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
So the
can you
order,
listen now?
a little bit better. Thank you very much, Mr. Razul. So the order of speakers, we'll have Emma Bowell on behalf of the Licensing Authority, and then we'll have Mr. Nick Semper and Mr. Razul if he'd like to add any additional bits. I would ask that people limit the amount of time that they are speaking to, no more than perhaps 15 minutes, if at all possible. Thank you. So questions for the... sorry, bear with me one just second. Okay, so I will now be... Pardon? Okay, so I now move to Emma on behalf of the Licensing Authority to give her report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, as the Chair rightly said, we're here today to consider an application for a grant of a premise licence in respect of Sky Blue Liqueur, 60 Commercial Road, Hereford, HR1 2BP under the Licensing Act 2003. The recommendations are that the subcommittee determine the application with a view to promote the licensing objectives in the overall interests of the local community. They should give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote those licensing objectives, representations including supporting information presented by all parties, the guidance issued to local authorities under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and the Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2020 to 2025. And the reasons for those recommendations are it ensures compliance with the Licensing Act 2003. There are a number of options open to the subcommittee today. One would be to grant the licence subject to conditions that are consistent with the operating schedule. B, grant the licence subject to modified conditions to that of the operating schedule. To exclude the scope from the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. To refuse to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor, or to refuse the application. The application for grant of a premise licence has received relevant representation and is therefore brought before the subcommittee today for determination. Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2020 to 2025 states all representation must be relevant. For example, they must be about the likely effect of the grant of the application. This follows paragraph 8.57 in the Section 182 guidance, which uses the same wording. The details of the application are as follows. The applicant is Akko Rasool. Agent is the licensing guys. We received the application on the 25th of September 2023. The 28-day consultation started on the 26th of September 23 and ended 28 days later on the 23rd of October 23. The application I found at Appendix 1 requests the following. Sell and supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, Monday to Sunday, 8 a.m. until 2 a.m. The applicant has also offered a set of conditions to promote the 4 licensing objectives, and these can be found at Appendix 2. No representations were received from any of the responsible authorities. 2 relevant representations have been received from members of the public, which the Licensing Authority has accepted as being relevant. The representations can be found at Appendix 3. Any decision made today may have an impact on the local community. The report is in relation to a premise licence under the Licensing Act 2003, and as such there are minimal environmental impacts for the Council. Stated in the report are quality duties, resource implications and legal implications, which your legal advisor can advise you on further if needed. There are unlikely to be any financial implications for the Council as a licensing authority at this time. There is a right of appeal, which gives the applicant or any party the right of appeal to Magistrates' Court within 21 days of the decision notice being served on the applicants or all parties. There is little risk associated with the decision at this time, as the legislation allows a right of appeal to Magistrates' Court within a period of 21 days of being notified of the decision in writing. All responsible authorities and members of the public within with Herefordshire have been consulted, and appendices 1 to 3 are found at the back of this report, and I understand there has been a supplement published since the report was published. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Emma. Can I now invite Mr. Semper to speak?
Well, firstly, before we start, we've already written to the licensing authority several times querying the admissibility of the town council observations on this application. It's our contention that the licensing authority did not receive a relevant representation as defined by Section 18.3 of the Licensing Act 2003 because the town council's representation was received after the deadline imposed by the regulations and consequently cannot fulfil the requirements of subsection 6, 7 and 17.5c. Now, Section 18.6, for the purposes of this section, relevant representations means representations which, under subpara B, meet the requirements of subsection 7. So I'll just tell you what subsection 7 is. It says that representations were made by a responsible authority or other person, such as the town council, within the period prescribed under section 17.5c. Now, section 17.5c, it says that the Secretary of State must, by regulations, prescribe the period during which responsible authorities or other persons may make representations to the relevant licensing authority about the application, and that limit is set at 28 days. Now, the first communications from the town council dated the 18th, and Ms Bowell replied to them on the 23rd of October saying that she couldn't accept them because they didn't fulfil the nature and qualities of being a relevant representation. The town council wrote back on the 25th, clarifying what their issues were, but of course that was outside the 28 days, and therefore both the town council's late submission and this further information which is in the appendix, the most recent appendix in our submission, should not be placed before the licensing subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Semper. Thank you. I'd like to hand you over to our counsel, Robert Brown, who'll be able to talk to you about those elements. Thank you.
Thank you.
In respect of the application, yes, it is correct that the initial objection was received on the 18th of October. But unfortunately, I believe it was Emma was out on annual leave and couldn't actually respond to that until the 23rd of October, which is factually the deadline. However, as you should be aware, Section 182 of the guidance does state that in borderline cases, the benefit of the doubt about any aspect of a representation should be given to the person making that representation. We are looking at one whole working day late, purely because Ms Bowell was on annual leave, and as such it is my advice that this does classify as a borderline instance, and as such the representation should be admitted.
Thank you very much, counsel. If you'd like to carry on, Mr. Semper, you've heard the response on that one. Thank you.
Yeah, surely. That is that. Yes, I understand that there is a certain amount of discretion around what is borderline. However, there is no provision in the Act that allows the extension of the time limit on the 28 days. Now,
sorry, Mr. Semper, sorry, if you could restrict your discussions not to that point, but to move on, because we have had a decision from our legal advice, so that is something that we will be taking into account. Thank you.
Absolutely, ma'am, but I have to make these points because if it goes further, if I haven't brought it to your attention, then that's a problem. So I have now, and if you're satisfied that matter's been aired, I'll press on with the main presentation, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So we've taken that advice. Thank you.
Okay, right. Okay, stand by. There we go. Good afternoon, members of the committee. I am Nick Semper and I am a licensing consultant. I'm representing Sky Blue in their application for a variation for their premises license, which is before you today. As you can see, members of the committee, this application is for a convenience store with off license, and they wish to sell alcohol until 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, in this application, the burden is on the applicant to show that the proposed variation supported by the pre-existing operating schedule, the operating schedule as offered, is capable of promoting the licensing objectives and will not undermine them. Any representatives still opposing the application, on the other hand, have the burden to show that the premises trading under the proposed operating schedule will undermine the licensing objectives and demonstrate that with evidence. In my submission, any subcommittee properly advised could only refuse this application if they find, on the evidence of the representatives, that the operating schedule is not capable of promoting the licensing objectives. Now, as you're aware, each application must be judged on its own facts and merits. Significantly, there is not a shred of evidence in the representations or arising from them or before you today that challenges or criticises in any way the operating schedule, the premises themselves, the applicant being the gentleman in front of you, or the proposed designated premises supervisor. So representations have been received by two parties. That's a moot point between us, but I will accept to move on, and I will deal with them both shortly. But firstly, however, much more significantly, I will now demonstrate who has not made any representation and must therefore be content with the application and satisfied that it is indeed capable of promoting the licensing objectives. The first one is the licensing authority themselves, acting as a responsible authority and responsible for all licensing matters in Herefordshire. They raise no objection. The police who are your primary source of information and evidence on all crime and disorder in ASB in Herefordshire? No objection. Environmental Health, who lead on quality of life issues under the public nuisance objective? They raise no objection. The Planning Department, which deals with planning and permitted business uses of premises in Herefordshire, has no issue with this application. The Highways Department, who deal with traffic issues, again, no issue. Trading Standards, who deal with underage sales of alcohol and any other trading issues, they raise no objection. Public Health, who deal with substance abuse, likewise, no issues. And lastly, the Safeguarding Board, responsible for the protection of children from harm, have no issue. Now, it is both a logical and compelling conclusion that all of these responsible authorities are satisfied that the application and its attendant operating schedule, as it now stands, is capable of promoting the licensing objectives. Otherwise, they would have made representations and would be here to argue vehemently against it, as is their statutory duty. Further, it is clear that responsible authorities, using all their expertise and knowledge of the area in question in which these premises are situated, are satisfied that it will not in any way undermine any of the licensing objectives. So turning to the representations themselves. Okay, the first, we have an anonymised representative stating that every morning there is already horrendous public order issues in Commercial Road, and that basically the police have lost control to this area, to lawlessness. In their opinion, that is their opinion, and valued, I'm sure it is, but that is not the view supported by the police, and there is no evidence before you to support that position. Yes, Commercial Road is the centre of the city's nighttime economy. That does not necessarily mean the police have lost control of the area, and the representative cannot stand in the shoes of the police and give evidence on their behalf. Now, the anonymised representative also claims that that pubs have policy, train staff, and do not serve minors. They continue that shops have no such policy or training in place and therefore can serve anyone. Well, a quick look at the Section 18 of this application in front of you clearly reveals that all of the Herefordshire Council Licensing Department model conditions regarding CCTV, incident books, refusals registers, staff training and Challenge 25 are entailed within this application and are found there within the licensing conditions. And therefore, with respect, this assertion that there are no safeguards or preventative measures applying to shops in general, this shop in particular, is quite simply untrue. Now, the anonymised representative concludes by requiring two things. Firstly, that the hours of this licence be restricted to the same as all the other licensed premises in the Commercial Road. Well, that would include, I presume, the 24/7 licence at the Apple Garage at the end of the road, or the convenience store, which is called Timmerswara, that's already got a licence until 2 o'clock, or Hogarth's, which terminal hour is 2 o'clock, or the commercial 2 o'clock, or Yates next door, which is 3 o'clock, or the Golden Galleon, or the Kerry Arms, which I believe are 4 o'clock. Therefore, the terminal hour as proposed and requested in this application is less than or equal to every other licence in the street, as far as I can see anyway. When clientele leave these other venues, these premises will already have ceased trading in alcohol. And secondly, the anonymised representative requests that there's a PSPO, or Public Spaces Protection Order, put in place for Commercial Road. Well, they'll be reassured, I dare say, and pleased to know that there already is one. It's been in place since the 1st of May 2018, and indeed this council has extended it until the 1st of May 2024. Therefore, I can only conclude that everything the anonymised representative requests has already been achieved, and the licensing committee need take no further action. Now, secondly, we have this town council submission, which has been deemed to be a representation. And as I've already said, that's a moot point, but you've decided to admit it, and so I'll deal with it today and challenge its submission at any future appeal. Now, the first and late submission of the 25th of October references accumulating evidence of disorder and street crime, and then fails to evidence any of it. It asserts that each new licence or extension incrementally increases the harm being done, yet provides no evidence of harm being done and how each new licence causes it. It lastly references crime and ASB stats from Herefordshire Council, but provides none, and the council themselves have provided none, and have raised no objection in their role as a responsible authority. Likewise with the police. There is an oblique reference in the first communication to the now abandoned cumulative impact zone, which is part of the cumulative impact policy, which has been superseded by cumulative impact assessments. That did indeed, when for the CIZ, when first introduced, it did create some form of rebuttable presumption against the grant. But that has gone when the cumulative impact zone was not renewed, and none of those controls now remain. The supplementary submission references cumulative effect, and I think they mean cumulative impact as defined by the Section 182 guidance. I turn yourselves and your legal advisor's attention now to para 14.42 of the Section 182 guidance, where it says the absence of a CIA does not prevent any person making a representation on an application on the grounds that the premises will give rise to negative cumulative impact on one or more of the licensing objectives. We're agreed on that. However, the Section 182 guidance continues by saying this. However, in each case, it is in making such a representation to provide relevant evidence of cumulative impact. Now, in these documents sent from the Town Council, there is no evidence of cumulative impact. And this, today, is an evidence-based decision-making process that we're engaged in. And para 9.43 of the Section 182 guidance clearly states that the licensing authority's decision should be evidence-based. Now, the representatives talk about a difficult background in Commercial Road. Well, that is their opinion, but it's not shared by any of the responsible authorities. Whatever problems there may or may not be down there, this applicant has contributed to none of them in any way whatsoever, so cannot be held accountable for them. If anyone is at fault for undermining licensing objectives down there, then it is for the responsible authorities to deal with those issues and the causes of them directly, and not to penalise this applicant who has sold no alcohol to anyone, who has committed no wrong, and nothing down there is of his making. Now, this is an application and not a review in any event. And although the representations reference all the licensing objectives, they fail to describe in any way if or how at any time following the grant of this premises licence, this applicant will undermine those licensing objectives. There is simply no evidence before you, but just more fear and speculation as to what might happen at some undisclosed point of time in the future if you were to grant this application. Please look to the reports pack provided to this committee by the licensing authority itself. It's at para 21 of page 102 and explains that, and I quote, the Thwaites case established the condition should only be attached to a licence with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, and that real evidence must be presented to support the reason for imposing these conditions or indeed refusing this application. Now, in the highly unlikely and improbable event of future problems actually occurring, then the representatives and the responsible authorities for that matter would have recourse to the statutory remedy to any and all such problems, being the Section 51 review procedure, with which you will all be familiar. So there we have it. This application hearing is simply about whether this premises licence, operating under this operating schedule, is capable of promoting the licensing objectives. Clearly, my position is that it is. It is a small-scale operation which mirrors other operations at the locality and will not, in future, impact adversely on anyone. Consequently, I respectfully request that you do indeed grant this application as sought, supported by the already comprehensive raft of effective conditions, and in doing so, you wish this modest convenience store every continuing success going forwards. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Semper, and thank you for keeping to time as well. Would Mr. Rezel, the applicant, like to add any additional information to this hearing? Thank you.
Yeah, like what Nick said, Mr. Simba said, I don't see any problem.
Sorry, Mr. Rezel, just to interrupt you, we can't hear you very well at all. So I don't know if you've got a different microphone or you can turn anything up on there.
Is it any better now?
Yes, that's a little bit better. Thank you.
Yeah, like what Mr. Simper just said, we don't see any problems down Commercial Road, to be license down Commercial Road, just, all around us is they are all pubs and they all serve alcohol. You know, and then for the last 5 years, I've been serve drunk people and we've been dealing with the people who's getting drunk and getting vapes and we have the best security. Never something happened in our premises before. Okay, so we make sure we don't sell alcohol or anything to anyone. We challenge 25-year-old. So we make sure we give it to the people who's well behaving, like they're all plus 18. I mean, I don't see anything gonna be a problem in that respect. Especially for the last 5 years, we provided those supervisor for our premises. We sell only food, hot food. I mean, obviously we're gonna have those supervisor team on our door, which is we provided till to I mean if it's late night, but like Mr. Semper said, it's all around us. I mean they all serve alcohol and the street is it's safe enough. I mean we go all the securities and then all the staff well trained. uh, wow, I mean I don't know what's the issue gonna be down this premise to the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russell. Do any of my fellow panel members have any questions at all of either the applicant or his agent?
No, thank you.
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, I've got one element of clarification from Mr. Robert Brown.
In respect of representations made in respect of pre-existing licenses being held for 24-hour trade, there's one on Thai Kebab, which is as late night refreshment only. HFC Fish and Chips has late night refreshments until 4 a.m. SFS Wines licensing till 11 p.m. 22 Commercial Road until
Sorry,
2
Rob,
a.m.
can I just interrupt there?
Yeah.
That was all licensed, the
Yeah.
three that you've just said was at number 60 where this one is considered.
Yeah, previous applications. In respect of the garage that was mentioned, that is a 24-hour license, but that is for off-license sales only, not on and off, as per this application.
Thank you for that clarification there. Could I just ask Mr. Semper, what is the rationale with the on and off-site license request? Is there provision of any space for on-site sale and consumption?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, Mr. Rasool, can you help us here? Do you intend to have people drinking on site, or is this going to be an off-license convenience store? My understanding was it was a convenience store.
Yeah, it's gonna be only convenience store. Okay, so people
Yeah.
take it away.
Then in that case, that's an error, ma'am. I'm very sorry about that. It should be off the premises only. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Has anyone any other further commentary to make or questions to add? Mr. Spriggs or Ms. Bowell? No. Okay, thank you very much. In that case, we will now adjourn the committee to come back in, I think, about 15 minutes to make our decision. So thank you very much. Please could I ask the live stream to be stopped? Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back to the Licensing Subcommittee. I will now read the decision of the subcommittee. Oh, sorry, can I just check that Mr. Semper is in the room?
Yeah.
Oh, great,
yeah,
thank
here,
you.
yeah.
Sorry. With regard to Sky Blue Liquor, 60 Commercial Road, Hereford, HR1 2BP, the subcommittee's decision is to grant the off-licence application. During the course of the hearing, the on-site licence was withdrawn by the applicant. The subcommittee has considered the written representations from members of the public and Hereford City Council and fully recognised the concerns raised and the reasons why the representations were made. However, the subcommittee considers the application for off-licence sale of alcohol, with the additional conditions proposed by the applicant, will promote the licensing objectives. In agreeing the application as an off-licence only, the subcommittee has endorsed that there will be no consumption of alcohol on the premises, but the premises will operate as an off-licence convenience store only. Furthermore, the committee supports the conditions as proposed by the applicant. We would like to clarify to members of the public that you can go to the licensing department at Herefordshire Council with any evidence-based concerns. That's the decision. I would also like to provide a little bit of narrative in regard to the Hereford City Council's concerns about the Public Spaces Protection Order. There is obviously an alcohol restriction zone already in place, and it would be hoped that that would address any concerns that they may have in that respect to people congregating on the street. Thank you very much. We'll now close the meeting. Thank you.
Bye.